Okay, Shalom Israel. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to the elect. The Wadi Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai for not allowing me to do another video. Lord willing, you all can be edified, man, to whom, whoever may come across this video. This is an article I came across, Cuban Crisis 2.0. Moscow eyes military base in Cuba after U.S. INF pull out. And the last time Russia, they had the military base in Cuba, it wasn't pretty, man. It was in the 60s, which during the Cuban crisis, it was basically at the brink of World War III, a nuclear war. To where the U.S. had their nukes over there in Italy and Turkey, and Russia had their nukes in Cuba, man. So it's basically, like they say, a dog-eat-dog type game, man. And what it was, it's just like that today, man. The spirit, I just seen the elder Sakaran, GMS guy, was on the street. They going talking about war games, I believe near Russia. Let's see, what does this say? War at Russia border. Okay. So hey, we in that time, man, that Cold War era. Because it was many not wars, but many allegations or the tensions was high. That's why they call it the Cold War era, man. America and its allies going against Russia and its allies, man. All right, which supposedly the Cold War era ended in the 90s. All right, but we see today as to where it's back up. The tensions are still as high, man. Even a lot higher today, to this very day. All right. So it says Moscow's response to Trump's plans to quit the INF treaty could be to reinstall military bases in Cuba. The State Duma Defense Committee head said he also predicted a new Cuban crisis if the U.S. and Russia fail to come to terms. The U.S. is planning to walk away from the crucial Cold War era intermediate range nuclear force, the INF treaty, and Russia's response may well be in the spirit of those times, namely reactivating military facilities in Cuba. That is according to Vladimir Shamanov, the head of the State Duma Defense Committee and a former airborne troops commander. And it's spiritual, because when you go into the INF, it was actually proposed. This treaty was proposed in 1988, and the Cold War era was supposed to be ended at 1990. So as this treaty was imposed as something like as a as a gesture of peace. All right, and here you have Trump to disannul that treaty, going to show you that there's no peace, man. I know the brother GMS Soul Melody, he did a video. And try to see if I can find it, because it's basically going into how when Russia and America, they had a press conference, and basically going into, let me see if I can find it. Okay, it says, has the eagle eaten all the olives? The olives represent peace, man. The eagle represent America, man. And this is I believe RT News. So here it is. America's not coming for peace, man. There's no more peace. Just like I said, in the Cold War era, man. All right, so we actually going back into them times, man. To where nuclear tension is, nuclear war is high. It says the U.S. is planning to walk away from the crucial Cold War era intermediate-range nuclear forces treaty, and Russia's response may well be in the spirit of those times, namely reactivating military facilities in Cuba. That is according to Vladimir Shamanov, the head of the State Duma Defense Committee and a former airborne troops commander. Indeed, the Cuban government has to allow the Russian military back, and this is more about politics than defense issues, Shamanov speculated. Assessing this scenario is underway and policy proposals will come next, he told Russia's Interfax news agency without elaborating. This issue may be raised when Cuba's new president, Miguel Diaz-Canel, visits Russia in early November. Diaz-Canel, a fresh face of Cuba's Communist Party, is wary of foreign military presence, but politics is living matter, Shamanov said. Cuba has its own interests, and it was hurt by U.S. sanctions, he added. Previously, the retired airborne, and just to speak on that, because as we all know, Cuba is a communist country, man. And, this is actually what started that Cuban, when you look it up, the Cuban Missile Crisis actually started because America, they had their puppet leader, this guy by the name, his last name was Batista, in office. Their puppet leader, which basically a puppet leader, for those who don't know, is one who's, out for the gain of America, as a leader, like say in Cuba, and you got a so-called Cuban president, but he's out for the interests of America, how they may have American companies, there, or pushing the American dollar, so on and so forth. Okay, pushing the American, pushing the American laws, this, that, and the third. Okay, so what happened was Fidel Castro came in and ousted. He actually overthrew that basically, and he came in as a communist party, and basically overthrew Cuba as far as overthrowing Cuba as far as it being an American-based society. I was looking up. There was a quote that he would say, Cubans yes, Yankees no. Yankees basically meaning Americans. Okay. So it says Cuba has its own interests and it was hurt by U.S. sanctions, he added. And the U.S. is not fucking with Cuba because, Cuba is not gonna, under the communist, the Castro regime, I guess you would call it. They weren't trying to bow down to America in their ways. Previously, the retired airborne general urged Moscow and Washington to come to terms and get back to reconciliation. If we don't stop it now and don't talk, we actually may create conditions similar to those which led to the Cuban crisis. All right? And that's coming, man. World War III is inevitable, man. The Cuban Missile Crisis was a major confrontation that brought the United States and the Soviet Union to the brink of nuclear war in early 1960s. During the standoff, Moscow stationed Soviet nuclear. Oh, Slovakia, and I had skipped over that point because when you go into the Cuban Missile Crisis as well, man, that goes to prove, man, that Yahweh Shem Yahushua is in control, man. Because as you go in, Lord willing, I may even do a video on that, Lord's willing. It goes to show you that the Most High is in control, man. Because, hey, it was a lot of times to where if one person just did the wrong thing, man, it could have resulted in all-out war, man. Cuba could have been annihilated. Millions of Americans could have been annihilated. It could have just been bad, man. So it says, but the Most High didn't have it so because he had to have his elect wake up, all right, and the chip, all his prophecies be pushed. So it says previously, the retired airborne general urged Moscow and Washington to come to terms and to get to reconciliation. If we don't stop it now and don't talk, we actually may create conditions similar to those which led to the Cuban crisis. He was quoted as saying by Ria Novosti, the Cuban Missile Crisis was a major confrontation that brought the United States and the Soviet Union to the brink of nuclear war in the early 60s. During the standoff, Moscow stationed Soviet nuclear-tipped missiles in Cuba in response to the deployment of similar-class American missiles in Turkey. Like I said, that's been looming for a minute now, man. To where you have NATO, doing drills over there in Ukraine, all right, pissing Russia off, man. Throughout the course of the Cold War, Russia operated a signals intelligence facility in Lourdes, Cuba. Opened in 1967, it was said to be the largest Soviet listening station abroad, with 3,000 personnel running the facility. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, the Lourdes base was downscaled, but continued operating up until 2001, when it stopped all operations. Restoring Russia's military presence in Cuba would make a lot of sense, Viktor Murakovsky told RT. He said reactivating the Lourdes base should not require substantial funding, but it would allow the gathering of interesting intelligence about Cuba's neighbors. He noted, however, the times when we deploy missiles in Cuba will not come back. And the scriptures speak of how the Most High is going to put hooks back in Russia's jaws, man, to put them in that old Cold War USSR era state, man. All right, it says Konstantin Sivkov, another military expert and retired Navy officer, disagreed, stating it is unlikely the Russian military will return to the island. In the 60s, we were forced to make this decision to deploy missiles to Cuba because we didn't have enough intercontinental ballistic missiles. Now we have. It says U.S. President Donald Trump sent shockwaves early in October when he promised to withdraw from the INF treaty, citing the evergreen Russia violated agreements argument. Russia fired back, stating the U.S. itself had breached the milestone according by the deploying ground-based missile interceptors in Eastern Europe. Then U.S. President Ronald Reagan and Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev signed a deal in 1987, and it went into effect the next year. This was the first time in history the two superpowers agreed to dismantle the entire class of ballistic missiles and conceded to mutual inspections. Okay? So, this is time, at this point, it was so-called time of peace, so to speak. Gorbachev himself recently attacked Trump, whose goal he claimed was to free the U.S. from any obligation, any constraints, and not just regarding nuclear missiles. So this is how Russia always has seen America. That they're not trying to bring peace, man. They're not trying to have peace. So, Russia could never trust any of the treaties that they may that they sign, man. The first and only Soviet president said in an opinion piece for the New York Times that a new arms race is on and urged Russia to take a firm but balanced stand. Well, that was it. Okay. So, when you're going reading this article, man, it just goes to prove what time we in, man. All right. So this is let's see. Yeah, man. So it just, the mother of America is Britain. So your mother shall be sore confounded, in which we see that now, man. This is why you have that Brexit going on too. She that bear you shall be ashamed, because behold, the hindermost of the nations shall be a wilderness, a dry land, and a desert. Because of the wrath of Yahweh, it shall not be inhabited, but it shall be wholly desolate. Every one that goeth by Babylon shall be astonished and hiss at her plagues. Put yourselves in array against Babylon. Round about all ye that bend the bow, which the bow is speaking about the intercontinental ballistic missiles. Like the article I just read, like Russia, they were saying that it's really not even really a need for them to put missiles. It's not even really a need for them to really sweat bringing missiles from Russia all the way to Cuba, because they have intercontinental ballistic missiles, man. But those are the bows are the missiles. All right, real quick to prove that. Second Ezra 16:13, for strong is his right hand that bendeth the bow, his arrows that he shooteth are sharp, and shall not miss when they begin to be shot into the ends of the world. The intercontinental ballistic missiles. Okay, so let's go back to back at Jeremiah chapter 50 and verse 14. Put yourselves in array against Babylon round about, all ye that bend the bow. Shoot at her, spare no arrows, for she hath sinned against the Lord. Shout against her round about, she hath given her hand, her foundations are fallen, her walls are thrown down, for it is the vengeance of Yahweh. Take vengeance upon her, as she hath done unto you. Skipping to verse 25. The Lord hath opened his armory, and hath brought forth the weapons of his indignation. For this is the work of the Lord power of hosts in the land of the Chaldeans. Come against her from the utmost border, open her storehouses, cast her up as heaps, and destroy her utterly. Let nothing of her be left. So, this is like the Cuban Missile Crisis, but this time it's not gonna be no talks to where talks of peace, man. All right, this time, the Most High is actually gonna allow the Russians and these other nations that are allied with Russia to finish this place off, man. As it is written in Revelations the 9th chapter that 200,000 or 200 million missiles are to hit this place, man. So and that's what World War III is, man. World War III is when the nukes actually do hit America, man. Because like I was saying before, the Cold War era was basically just a bunch of going back and forth, but nothing actually really happened, man. The only thing I could say that really happened was basically treaties. As far as the U.S. making allies and NATO, and Russia making his allies, man. All right, but nothing really happened. But the World War III, all right, it's to where all these nations are gonna come up against Babylon. The scriptures say even America's allies are gonna come up against her. Let me see. Obadiah 1 and 7. All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound on thee. There is no understanding in him. All right. So, the ones that were at confederacy with America, Saudi Arabia, or now Iran, they going against America. All those that were at confederacy, these UN nations, the UN nations, all those that were at confederacy with Babylon are gonna come up against her. How much more those that were never liked America, man. So this place is right, man. It's ready to go down. So that was it, man. Just some news I have found. I thought it was a good article. Just wanted to share with the Akim. Cuban Crisis 2.0. All right. Hey, so with that, Lord willing, you brothers edified. Shalom to the elect.